Today I'd like to talk about the mind that might prepare us for a spiritual experience. To have a spiritual experience, I think we may need to make certain decisions, which is called discernment. It's not judgment, as many people are clear. Judgment is something in which we put a little bit of condemnation, or we spread out the decision across the board to parts that don't deserve it. So let's say in the case of discrimination or something like that, judgment has a harshness to it. It has a I'm better than aspect. Discernment, on the other hand, is about clarity, seeing clearly what will serve both ourselves and the world around us, and choosing that. That is the power of discernment. Now, in the Hindu tradition, they talk about the mind essentially having three gunas, or three energies within it. And the first energy we might want to talk about is rajasic, which these words are not all that important, but essentially think of it as ego-based, one that's motivated by I, me. And the next one is called tamasic. Now, tamasic is a little bit different in that it's more about being lazy. And it is in some ways even worse about thinking about others. It may do things that are difficult for other people, but generally in a way that it harms ourselves as well. Guna is the one that is cultivated when you're on the spiritual path. This is called the Sattva. And what you do with this is all those good things that we talk about on the spiritual path. It's less ego-oriented, it's more we-oriented, and looks for win-wins. It is healthy. It has moderation. It understands how to be ready and yet steady at the same time. It is generous. It is kind. All those things that we consider to be something that the spiritual person should be like. The process of developing this type of attitude is essentially the one of not doing the first two and doing what we do over here. So it is essentially this process discernment. Will what we do take us into sloth, lethargy, and self-centeredness, or into egotism and perhaps deceitful life, or is it going to take us in a healthy direction? Now, this is essentially the preparation for getting to know your divine self. If you spend time developing the qualities of your sattva, then I think you are invited in to meet the divine. And that essentially is the goal of spiritual practice, in my opinion, is to ultimately be successful in life, which the sattva will also bring to you, helps you be more compassionate with people, but also makes you a better decision maker. You become more decisive. You become clearer. The tendency to be successful in money and fame is greatly increased. Your tendency to be healthy is greatly increased. This is a wonderful upward, both in the regular life and in your spiritual life. Thinking, the mind is a compilation of things you have eaten to a large degree. So eat well. Spend as much time in nature as you can, and spend it in alone, in contemplation, in a sense of receptivity. Now, there's something about being in nature that allows our bodies and our minds to quiet. The track on the spiritual life seems to be relatively slow. And that's because they're not reading and contemplating and meditating. So a great way to develop your spiritual life is to read the masters, like the Bible, the Vedas, or some Buddhist text, and to really contemplate the ideas that have come in through those writings. Of course, a lot of the spiritual path is individual, and not everything can be learned from a book. Much of it is merely paying attention to your own life. And so doing the contemplation, the meditation, the journaling, the sitting still and just being with yourself. This is the inward path that leads to discernment and awakening. Now, just consider that you need to develop a mind that can be steady, that can be not focused on keeping the ego in its perfect place like it used to be, the king of the table, instead allowing it to become the servant of a deeper, more important aspect of yourself. And not being so slothful that you can't get around to it. And you just carry this with you and act it out in unhealthful ways. These are the qualities of someone who's not on the path. And if you're on the path, then you continue to develop that. This tranquility that can come just by watching your breath can be part of the process. Becomes a pathway for moving inward. It not only becomes a pathway for moving inward, it becomes a pathway for stillness and quiet. To let the body and the mind come to a place of readiness to be able to pierce the fog of our own existence and see clearly enough that we can make a decision or discern what is actually happening with us. This process of letting that happen is to give us the chance to actually make this life productive in a spiritual way, unfold into a deeper, more elegant self. And that more elegant self is now ready to experience the self with a capital S.